Anytime someone tells you that something is bad quality because it's made in China, you should direct them to Grant Stone, a truly unique footwear company that makes their footwear in sunny Xiamen in South China. Fun fact, I spent 2 years living in China. Xiamen is sort of like the Miami of China. It's a horrible generalization, but that's sort of like what it is. And their quality is superb. Like, I honestly didn't really want to mention China because even if you're very open-minded, it probably has some negative connotations. You could literally get a pair of Grant Stones, tell yourself that they were made in New England, and you could just believe that very happily for the rest of your days. They really have like the quality of like $400 or $500 boots at a much lower price point. Grant Stone is actually such a good, solid company with very well-designed footwear that the only pair of shoes I've ever bought my father was their Traveler Penny Dune loafers that I got him for Christmas last year. And I called them the unofficial shoe of 2019. They were absolutely everywhere and they deserved to be because they were gorgeous shoes made with chrome XL leather. The company uses really high quality leathers, high quality last, high quality construction, but you get it at a lower price. And now they're doing Chelsea's, and they're pretty new to the market with the Chelsea's. They've only been doing them for a few months, so I wanted to get one of the first reviews out there on the internet, and hopefully they sell pretty well so this review isn't completely useless and obsolete in a couple months when they get taken off the market. So let's take a close look at the Chelsea boots from Grant Stone. All right, so broad overview of the aesthetic. We've got a waxed suede upper from CF Stead in England, studded rubber outsole, and all attached with a nice 360-degree Goodyear welt. The shoe might be a little bit shorter than you were expecting. It's actually about 5.5 inches high. Most like kind of work boots out there are about 6 inches high. So it's a little bit stubbier, but it's not really alarming in that respect. The last is what they call the UK last, kind of similar to the more famous Leo last, which they describe as having a fuller fit. The toe is slightly extended for a sharper expression, and it has a harder angle than any of Grant Stone's other boots. Almost a square toe, but not as angular as European or Australian Chelsea boots like the Carmina or the RM Williams respectively. But it is more square than like the Thursday boots Chelsea, for example, and even the Red Wing Chelsea, which is a very different build to Thursdays, but still they have like rounder toes than you're gonna see here. So like if you take a look at it, while it does have a slightly angular toe, it is not as like sleek as, again, like Carmina or RM Williams or something like that. The idea being for it to have like a kind of a voluminous fit that makes it plenty comfortable to walk around in all day, but also slim enough that it's not hard to wear in business casual settings or these khakis I'm wearing it with here. It's a really nice in-betweener sort of boot. Now this boot is available in the very snappy calf leather from Tanneries Danone, but this is the very famous Waxy Commander leather from CF Stead in England. You might remember an embossed version of this leather on the Taft Dragon boot. It's also used in a lot of shoes by Carmina and Truman as well as like a bunch of other places. It's really, really famous kind of leather. It's a very esteemed tannery, as is Tanneries Danone, mind you. It's a hugely popular leather because it's suede but it's waxed. I mean, that's one of the reasons, but it's suede but it's waxed. So it's 1,000,000 times more water resistant than regular suede. It's true you don't get the fuzzy nap you get from like regular unadorned suede, but it can still bang and it ages well. Here's a year-old pair of Truman boots with it. CF Stead sells it anywhere from 1.4 to 2.2 millimeters, and Grant Stone went with 1.6 to 1.8 millimeters thick, telling me they chose the middle ground because any thicker and it can feel quite tight. Indeed, this leather is shrunk during the tanning process, so it has a tighter fiber structure and less stretch. So you may want to make sure you don't get like a smaller size and hope it stretches like many do. This has less elasticity than a lot of other leathers, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Now this leather naturally looks a bit distressed given the surface and the high wax content. To maintain the look, you're advised to brush it with a firm bristle brush, like a suede brush that I link in the written review below. And if the wax eventually wears away, as it may, you're advised to add Dubbin wax, which is a mixture of like wax, oil, and tallow. What you don't really want to do is apply a lot of conditioner. A tiny little bit might be fine to maintain or enhance the dark, rich color, but too much will penetrate the leather too much. It's quite porous, this sort of leather. As for the sole, this is Grant Stone's own micro stud sole, pretty straightforward design that offers grip while being nice and flat from the side. Although these studs are a little bit more recessed than like a lot of competing brands, just to make sure you can't feel the studs when walking. On a durometer, they say this compound is a tad softer than competing models as well. I'm pretty sure they were talking about Day-Night, but they didn't want to mention any brands. Most guys will just find it grips pretty well and doesn't rattle your knee bones when you're walking. Like the shock absorption is decent, which is helped by the leather insole, which has cork filler and a steel shank. And then there's a 3mm leather midsole attached before the rubber is attached with a water-resistant Goodyear welt that offers an unlimited amount of resoles. Now for the fit and sizing, the sizes run from 6 to 13 right now, and there are no wider widths. Like they're hoping to get wider widths down the road, but it's like very expensive for a company to come out with wider widths, especially if it's like a new model shoe. They don't know if anyone's gonna like it or not. So, you know, hit the buy button if you wanna see more of these sorts of boots. They're gonna develop like a new last and everything. So yeah, generally a shoe as new as this, they're gonna wait a little while to have wider widths. None of them right now. I did actually see the founder, Wyatt Gilmore, say in an interview once that this should fit D and E width feet. For my money, it's pretty snug around the toes. It's nowhere near as snug around the toes as like really sleek Chelsea boots, like my Carmina Chelseas, for example. You know, I don't know if an E-width shoe would fit this, but then again, I don't have E-width feet. I don't know what they fit, what they don't fit. And as for the sizing, they run large, so you get a size small. I'm never quite sure how to say that, but my true size is 11.5, and like just about every boot I own, like Red Wing and Wolverine and Thursday and all these guys, I size down to an 11, and it fit me really well. The arch support is really quite good. The steel shank in there really does confer like a very like hard, sort of like a bump underneath the arch of your foot, which is nice. The shock absorption is quite good. It's not really high tech. There's no EVA foam or porn or anything in there. It's a really traditionally made shoe, which means that it's gonna really mold nicely to the shape of your foot over time with the cork and the leather in there. But the shoe has a real heft to it. Like it's got a really unusually thick leather midsole. It's also fully lined with not calf skin, but like full grain cow leather. And all this comes together to make a shoe that feels quite heavy duty while still dressing up relatively easily. Now, as far as the price goes, if you get this in the black leather, it's like $310. If you get it in this leather here, the earth leather, it's $280, which is absurd value for this like level of quality. And obviously that's because, you know, it's made in China, right? It does come from the distribution center in Missouri, so it comes to your door quite quickly. There's no like long wait or anything like that, and returns are easy and free as well in the contiguous United States, not if you're overseas, unfortunately, but not really surprisingly. But yeah, 280 bucks, man. If you gave me these shoes, told me they were made in New England, and told me they cost 450 bucks, I'd get it. Like I would understand. Even 500 bucks, even 550 bucks. That's pretty expensive, but given the quality I'm looking at here, I would not be surprised that all of this costs well over 400 bucks. So under 300 bucks, that's a real draw of Grant Stone. It's not, there are a lot of boots out there that are inexpensive, but like they deserve their price. This is inexpensive and it deserves a much higher price. So yeah, the value is like a really big standout here of Grant Stone. All right, pros and cons. I can keep this one pretty short. I just told you all about the price and the value and everything. It's very, very good value for what you're getting. And it's like a really tough, sturdy, well-constructed shoe. You got this really nice, tough, waxy suede here, which is gonna age beautifully and it's gonna resist the elements really well. You've got really thick leather midsole here. You've got vegetable tan leather all through the midsole and the insole. You've got a full grain leather counter, full grain leather lining as well. It's not calfskin, it's like full grain cow hide as well. You got the cork in there. You got a nice steel shank for solid arch support. It really does feel nice underneath the arch of your foot. Mold shape of your foot over time. The way they market the boot is that it can be a workhorse boot or a daily commuter, which I would agree with. Like it doesn't have like a big chunky commando grip sole or anything that you can take hiking. You shouldn't be wearing Chelsea boots for hiking anyway. It doesn't support the ankle enough. But I would agree that yeah, they do a really good job, a remarkable job of combining traditional construction with like rugged, hardy materials while nonetheless making a boot that is relatively easy to dress up, at least in business casual situations. The main potential downside you might see with this boot, no wide widths, no free returns if you're overseas. Neither of those are very surprising, but nonetheless, they might be bothersome for some folks. It's also, I feel like the main complaint someone might have with the aesthetic is that it is an in-between boot, right? It's neither firmly casual nor firmly dressy. So some people, they get really, really finicky with this sort of footwear, and if it's not gonna be perfect for that dressy outfit or perfect for that casual outfit, you know, it might be off-putting to them. For most people, it's a great in-between boot that can work in a variety of situations. It's a little bit like, it reminds me a little bit of the Wolverine 1000 Mile in that regard, like not quite dressy, not quite casual. Which one is it? But I think it's fine. I think it's a good looking boot. The only other main issue I think you might have with this boot is that it is made in China. The craftsmanship has not taken a ding on that. The craftsmanship is very, very top notch. And I think that there's a lot of bad stuff made in the US, a lot of bad stuff made in Australia, a lot of bad stuff made in Mexico, and there's bad stuff made in China, but you just need to let the product speak for itself. And universally in the world of boots, people recognize Grant Stone as just superb craftsmanship, regardless of where it's made. Like you don't need to think about where it's made. That said, if you have a thing about keeping as much of your money inside the US as possible, I get that, you know, like fair enough. It is run by an American and it has a lot of employees in Missouri, but nonetheless, yeah, if you have a thing where like you don't want to participate in a globalized world or you want to minimize your participation in a globalized world, yeah, I guess Grant Stone wouldn't be the one for you. But it definitely has nothing to do with the quality. The quality is top notch. All right, those are my thoughts on the Grant Stone Chelsea. Very, very new, but a pretty cool boot, a very worthy addition to the Chelsea pantheon, and it's been very rapturously received in online circles. So maybe you'll like it, maybe not. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. I've got a full written review with some pictures and stuff in the description as well, and a link to buy it if you want to do that. If not, no worries. But make sure you subscribe anyway, because I got a whole lot more Chelsea boot reviews and boot reviews, raw denim, wax Kansas stuff, and all sorts of heritage fashion sorts of things coming up.